Well, alrighty then. Good morning, kids. A little something upbeat and different for you. We have got a great one today. So let's get the just playing the drums. Awesome. That's outstanding. I love it. Need somebody to play the drums really for me. Just trying to make it all work out. So as usual, just a little noodling to begin the day. And that just kind of gets my mind clear and open so we can approach this without prejudice. So here we go. I have with me this morning, and in fact, I'll just join him here because that's how we do these things. We got Brian Staveley, who I think that you guys are probably familiar with. Hang on a second. What's going on here? It says, put the call in. So Brian Staveley, he's got numerous channels, including Dose of Reality. And welcome, Brian. Great to have you with me this morning.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. Perfect.
Loud and clear. So I think Brian and I have only talked a couple of times, just briefly within the context of other shows. I think you've called into Poppycock before, and probably we've talked somewhere else briefly, but I don't think we've had the honor of really sitting down and getting to know each other. So we have that opportunity this morning, and so we took it. So
yeah,
welcome,
fantastic.
Brian.
Yeah, cool. I'm always down. So fantastic. It actually is funny because it started by me asking you to come on my show,
Yep.
and then you were like, "Okay, you're coming on my show today." I'm
Yeah,
like,
we're just done. We'll just do this, right? Make it happen. All right. So, again, if you're not familiar with Brian, he's one of the leading and probably most outspoken voices in this community, especially regarding a couple of topics. Flat Earth, certainly, but Mandela effect is a big one for him, right? Getting some people triggered, as you do,
Yeah, man.
right? So,
Yeah.
again, I love your passion and just kind of just like, oh, I'm not backing down. So, let's tell you what. If you don't mind, let's back up all the way to the beginning. So I like to kind of go into these stories and the Awakening Project. Tell me a little bit about Little Brian. So I know you're
Little Brian?
I know you're from
Okay.
I know you're from the Boston area. In fact, I didn't know if you know or are friends with Richie from Boston at all.
No, I
Not
mean
really.
I know him only because I did a couple shows with him.
Yeah,
But
okay.
before doing the first show I did with him, which was a Mandela Effect interview, it was like 2.5 years ago now.
Yeah.
Other than that, before that, I had never had any contact with Richie.
Yeah, I don't really know Richie either, other than but he looks and sounds almost exactly like a buddy of mine that I used to work with in L.A., who was from Boston, and Danny G. And man, they sound exactly the same. I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys could be twins, right? Twinkies. Terrific, salt of the earth type folks. So, but yeah, definitely, I would put you from the Southie area, somewhere up there. So, tell me about your background. What was it like growing up, and what were your interests? And tell me about that.
Growing up, I was a pretty hyper kid, I guess. Nothing like
Nothing has
crazy.
changed.
I definitely wasn't shy, and I had a lot of friends, and I played soccer pretty much year round, and I played baseball as I got a little older, for several years. I was really into sports a lot and video games. That was really my thing a lot growing up. And as far as school, I did really good in the early years, but once I hit junior high, I was completely sick of it and just started rebelling all the time. And then it was, I ended up dropping out. I did a sophomore year in 3 different high schools.
Right.
3 different years in 3 different high schools.
And so, were you one of those guys who just kind of it just all seemed silly, or you weren't into the work, or you spent more time on the social aspects, or did you sort of like me get in trouble for asking all the wrong questions, which were all the right questions? How did that go for you?
Probably all the above. I'm not going to sit here and say I knew it was all lies because that wasn't true, but it was definitely uninteresting, and I didn't see how much of it applied to like anything, like English class and things like this. Like, it's just so boring. I did buy the lies. I mean, I bought what they were telling me in science for the most part.
Yeah.
I bought what they were telling me in social studies for the most part. But a lot of it seemed, it just seemed so repetitive and redundant, and they didn't make it interesting at all. And once I got to high school, one of the things that really turned me off too is all my friends, most of my close friends, I can't say all my friends, but my close inner circle of friends, they all got to go to the trade school where you do a week shop and a week of class, if you're familiar with what those type of schools are, right? Like a vocational school.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And my parents made me go to the high school because they wanted me to get to college and blah, blah, blah. And it was the most boring freaking thing ever. And by the third sophomore year, I had finally made it to that trade school. And it was so much different because I was actually learning, electronics and learning how to fix things. And it
Sure.
was like so much more interesting. And then when you only had to go to class, you went for a week and you knew that you had shop week coming up and you could get trained to do a job. So yeah, that kind of, and what happened is, and what ended up happening is I was told that, I was going to I ended up passing I was told I'd be able to, you know, play soccer the next year. But then once I played in 2 games, they said I was ineligible and I just walked out of school and quit.
Okay. Yeah, well, if you take away the motivation, right?
Yeah.
That's going to happen. So it sounds. I mean, just correct me if I'm wrong here, because I'm just getting kind of getting the information. But it sounds as if you're the kind of person who tends to learn best immersively. You throw yourself in and do it sort of hands-on, immersive. You need that sort of kind of both understanding it and applying it to really grasp it. Would you say that describes you pretty well?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
And then, all right. So now you've left school. You said, fuck the fucking fuckers."
Yeah.
Right. So, all right. So what now?
Exactly.
You professional video gamer? What bartender? What kind of vocation did you begin to pursue? And what did life look like as a young Brian?
Well, I actually just I bounced around to just different jobs. I did a lot of I got into restaurant jobs for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up I was the store manager of at the time, which would have been a lot of money. A pizza shop that was bringing in, I think like, close to $30,000 a week or whatever in sales. But this was like 20 years ago.
Sure, yeah.
So I had that responsibility when I was young, and I did that for a little bit, not too long. I was probably a little immature for that. I stuck around in the restaurant business for a while and bounced around to some other jobs, just odd different jobs. Nothing ever really stuck for me because I can't stand working in that slave system like that. And I didn't really understand that it was a slave system at the time,
Mm-hmm.
but it just never worked out well for me. But I always managed to get by. I always did fine.
And so, what kind of interest did you pursue? Drinking? I mean,
Oh, okay.
like sports, or so you use sports, or what would you do?
Everybody goes through their drinking and maybe their drug phase or
Sure.
whatever in their early 20s. So of course I went through that partying. I was out a lot, real, I guess you could say a social butterfly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was always out at the clubs, the bars, always going out with everybody every weekend, all the time. I was really into sports. That was probably my other thing. Like, not just because I played when I was younger. I would go to at least 5, 6, 7 Red Sox games a year, at least 4 Patriots home games. If they made any playoff games, I would get to all the playoff games. I'd go to a few Celtics games every year. I made sure I made it to all the championship parades, which was a lot. And
Yep.
Every time they sang "We Are the Champions," they said "of the world" at the
world.
end.
Yep. I remember.
And then and fast forward, that was my life. That was my life. I've been single pretty much the whole time. If anybody wants to know. I had a girlfriend once when I was like 21 for like a year or two, and I had one when I was about 10 or 11 years ago now, right before the awakening process, for about a year or two. And other than that, I've been pretty much on this journey by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole sports thing and being all obsessed with doing all that came to a screeching halt once I hit that pivotal point where the awakening journey went a little bit forward, if you want to head to that.
And what opened that can of worms for you? What you said for you, it was like it came to a screeching halt. So you hit one and went, "Holy shit, what's this?"
Yeah. One other thing I should add, because it is relevant to the conversation, is when I was really into the sports, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. So I put myself in Connecticut School of Broadcasting in 2005. And I did really well there, and they put me at a radio station, but it was only as production, and it was a long haul from my house. It was in Manchester, New Hampshire. So I was doing production for the Red Sox affiliate there for the Red Sox games and some of their local teams, but I only did that for like maybe a year and a half, and then I quit doing that. So I did have a little bit of experience doing some things in that regards because I know it'll become relative later. But fast forward to 2010. All that happened now when 9/11 happened, I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I'm not going to come out here and tell you, I doubted it that day. No way. I bought the whole thing. I thought these people were our enemies. We used to even spy on this Arab guy that owned this shop across the street because he had like hardly anything in his variety store, but he was like selling phone cards or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But we thought he was a terrorist. like we would spy on this guy at night and everything, right? We didn't like call the fucking cops on him or anything, but I mean, we were scared
Yeah.
man, I was brainwashed by Fox News, really bad. And they made it all flashy and stuff just before 9/11, and they rolled that out. So people, younger generation, people of our age, they were enthralled with it. Like, oh, this looks much better than CNN. Just the presentation. That was a lot of it, and they sucked people in. And I used to love Bill O'Reilly. I used to cheer Bill O'Reilly on. I mean, I was brainwashed. And then in 2010, just by chance, there was a movie that came up in my Netflix. I think that's how it was on Netflix. I think it just came up. I don't think anybody told me to watch it. And it was called World Trade Center. And that was with Nicolas Cage. And the movie is a disinformation propaganda piece. Of course, it's on Netflix.
Of course. Yeah.
Right? But I didn't know that at the time. And what it did is it showed you a different perspective than the media, and it showed you explosions in the basement and firefighters trapped and all this type of thing. And I'm like, okay, so it just totally opened Pandora's box to me. And I got so interested that I just dove in and started doing my own independent research into what happened on that day. And I just, obviously kept turning over leaf after leaf after leaf after leaf, and it was just endless.
And so how long did you spend on that particular topic? So once that can of worm was open, you said, okay, 9/11 is not what we're told. Even though they spun a different tale than what we know or suspect now to be closer to the truth. So you said, okay, there's something wrong here. And so how long did you spend going through that? Was there a period of doubt at first, or did it, like, immediately it just ring true for you and you go, fuck it, this is it? Or did it create some doubt and you went, what's going on here? Tell me about that process.
This is going to sound maybe like BS to some people, but with 9/11, with Flat Earth, even with Mandela effect, I never got triggered and was like, that can't be. I mean, I just took the information in, and I kind of realized, like, it was so obvious that we were lied to. And I'll try and be careful. I know we're on your YouTube channel. There's only so much I can say about this topic, but there's a whole second awakening that comes with that, because everybody knows 9/11's an inside job. I mean, come on, man. Who could believe the tale of the 19, hijackers and the box cutters and the paper passports and the whole thing? But that's not the problem. The problem is they wanted you to know 9/11's an inside job. The reason being is a lot of people are starting to not trust the government and whatnot. So what they wanted to do is, all those people that were on that edge is, okay, they're not going to trust the government. Well, if they're not going to trust us, we're going to give them another reason to be in ultimate fear. And now the people that are 9/11 truthers, that believe the 9/11 truther narrative about the 3,000 people, which in my opinion is complete fear porn. It's just like everything else. It's a complete script. They are in more fear than the normies. So Operation Successful. But getting back to the point, there's a second awakening in that journey, which came several months to me after, and that was realizing that there were no planes used. That's a huge thing, because then the whole media falls. Okay, it's not just the corrupt government, because now the media is involved. If the planes are CGI,
they become complicit.
It's the media.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the problem is you'll have all these other theories out there. Oh, well, just like with the moon footage. So you know how you'll see fake moon footage, but they'll say all these reasons why they're showing you fake footage, but they still went, right?
Right. Yeah.
Same thing if you see fake footage of the plane, they're going to try and give you all these other reasons. Oh, well, it's a hologram, or it's a fake plane superimposed over real footage. No, it's fake. And the problem is, if it's a hologram, which a lot of people throw out there, a lot of the gatekeepers, that keeps the credibility with the fake witnesses. That keeps the credibility of any media on the ground, because they'd be filming a real object in the sky. Then who do you blame? Some black ops military group that you can't name? No, it's a complete fabrication. So my main point here is, once you realize that, and then I get deeper into it, and I think the whole thing, like I said, complete script. I don't want to go too far, but when you really start to look, you'll see the same things that you see in all these other events. And when you realize that, it's such a liberating feeling, Baldini. You don't have any more fear in the world at all. How can you look at any of it? Any of the past events, any of the, the events to do with, the elementary events, we'll say, that came after that kept rolling out. How do you buy into any of it once you realize what I've realized about that day? So try to make it a little shorter, I spent about 4 years on it. I spent about the first 3 years really, really heavy in it, doing all the interviews I could, doing all the shows I could. It took a lot of research to come to the conclusions that I came to. And it's not like somebody laid it out for me and there's like a documentary you could watch it. I could say, oh, I agree with that. I mean, we were, in the midst of, breaking this information amongst a small group of people. And even 10 years later, a lot of people won't even look at no planes, never mind no deaths. I mean, nobody will even look at it still. And it bothers me because people laugh at all the NASA fakery. How could you believe it? Look at this footage. Look at the footage of 175. Look at the footage of the buildings too, not just the plane. Come on, man.
So you covered a lot of ground there in a short period of time, even though, so you have a 4-year period there. But by the time we get to the end, then you're saying you've done a bunch of podcasts on it, right? A bunch of videos on it. Was it this event that caused you to start doing videos and podcasts, or had you already been doing that before and then switched your focus? What precipitated that?
Oh, it was totally this. In fact, I had never done anything like that in my life, dude. And I had seen that there was like nobody out there doing shows on it. There were a couple people that would talk about it, like Fetzer and a few other people. Marcus Allen was another guy that was out there. Chris Kendall had a talk show. I mean, these are the old school guys, and that was it. There was nobody else. And I'm like, okay. So after calling into these shows and, knowing I could do it as well as anyone, I'm like, okay, but I don't want to be stuck to a platform. So I decided to build it myself on my website, which I still have. Like if everything goes down, I can still broadcast radio shows on my website. And so I set it up there, and I just started doing shows there. And I took on a co-host, Justin Cook, and then eventually James Sloan from New Zealand. Justin's not with us anymore. He passed a couple years ago.
Wow.
And I haven't really talked to James a lot lately, but that's the old Dose of Reality show crew. And we did shows till about 2014, and then you've seen the bullshit that goes on in Flat Earth. You could only imagine the bullshit that went on in 9/11 back then, especially with what I was saying compared to what every other 9/11 major person was saying. I mean, I'm the one that's saying, no, it's all complete poppycock, right?
Right.
All of it. And it's all fear porn. And each one of those is a rabbit trail to whether they want you to think directed energy weapons evaporated the people, or they want you to think that mini nukes were set off, or they want you to think all these other theories that are all fear porn. And when it comes down to it, it's just another script. It's just like the CV, there's so many parallels between the two things. I mean, even, the empty hospitals and all that, you can see that, on that day in September in New York City. And I've shown it many times. Big smoke break.
Yeah. All right. So, how far was it? A year in? Like, so, I'm trying to kind of follow along here. So you've figured out first of all that it's an inside job where it's sure. what we've been told is not happening, right? And then that second awakening. That's another place I wanted to kind of just dig into a little bit deeper. How long after the first awakening did that occur? And then you mentioned something that I think is very telling there, which you said that sense of freedom that came, right? Suddenly you go, hey, wait a minute, I don't have to be afraid of this. Tell me a little bit more about that connection, what kind of put those things together for you, how far down the road this is, and then so you said after calling into a few shows, you felt like you could do it as well or better than any of them. But what was it? I think I want to ask, like, you felt like you had information that they didn't, or you could do it better, or you had something to say. So I think those two to walk me through that period of the second awakening, the emotional connection there, and then the I think the why. Right, is what I'm looking for here. Right, that I'm looking for that passion. Right, those things, because I know you're a passionate guy, right, and you don't back down from any of this stuff. And as you said, right, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that goes on in the truth community because people, once they've been lied to, they're suspicious of everybody, and so everybody becomes a shill. Right, if they're putting out a storyline that they don't buy, everybody else is a shill, controlled opposition, because that happens. Just as you said, right, there are controlled opposition. There are people out there who are given to us to give us part of the truth, but to misdirect us, right, and to get us running around in circles. And so, again, you're one of the most passionate guys in this community that I know. Who really, you put your money where your mouth is, and you're not afraid to back down, right? It sets some people back, but again, I love that you're not afraid of it, and you're certainly passionate about it. So walk me through that sort of emotional process, like what made the connection and what got that fire really burning.
Okay, so first off, I can tell you the why of why I was so into it is I mean the lie was so huge,
Yeah.
and I can't stand being lied to, and it was
Right.
just huge, absolute huge paradigm shift for me. But it didn't make me go like hide in the corner, but it was that type of feeling, you know. But I just kept on going forward, right? Now, when you talk about the second awakening, that's very key because that's when I realized what controlled opposition is, and it was Alex Jones that ties into all of this.
Right.
So you wake up to 9/11, you get hit with guys like Alex Jones. Everybody's been there, right?
Yep.
Everybody's been there,
Yep.
right? So I wasn't stuck on him for too long, but I was, a few months, like maybe 4 or 5 months, right? But I was not looking to these people for my 9/11 research. This was back in the day when there were actual people that had forums and websites, and they weren't just stuck on Facebook or YouTube. So there was all sorts of places to go, and you had to discern a lot and sift through a lot of stuff, but there was lots of bits of information. You could do lots of research like this. So I wasn't looking to Alex for information, but I listened to his shows. And when you listen to stuff like that, it's like listening to Lester Holt in the nightly news. I mean, it's brainwashing you, whether you believe it or not. He's just throwing complete propaganda at you the whole complete time.
Right.
But what happened is just a few months in, I had figured out that there were no planes. And I'm not saying I figured it out. I know there were no planes before me. Okay. Very few. And it was very hard to find information. I looked at a lot of video footage on my own. Okay. It wasn't because somebody told me. But besides that, after being about however long it was in, Alex Jones clearly showed that he had an agenda against no planes, and he would do exactly what they have done to, say, flat earthers for the last 5 years, but he would do it on a much, much louder level about how stupid they are. They're here to hurt the movement. They're imbeciles. These freaking no plane, blah, 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 and on and on and on. And I'm like, this guy's talking about me, like not me personally, but,
So
me and
classic gatekeeping behavior.
absolute gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Absolute gatekeeping. So that's when I realized what it was. And then I started to look around and you saw gatekeeping everywhere against no planes. So I already knew there was a lot of it throughout no planes, throughout nine. In fact, that's why, I was associated with the forum, Let's Roll forums. I was booted out of there for introducing not introducing, for talking about the media fakery along with some of the stuff that they had dug up because they were so against it. And it's just like there was a lot of gatekeeping going on. But the no planes and Alex Jones' reaction made me realize what controlled opposition was. Because at the time, you've been lied to your whole life. Now 9/11's presented to you. Now you see the alternative media. You think those guys are there to tell you the truth, right?
Right.
He's out there with a bullhorn telling you 9/11's an inside job. Okay, these guys are here to tell the truth.
Yeah, prison planet, and they're coming to get you.
Yeah, they're not there to tell the truth at all. They're there to keep people in fear and bring people back into the left, right. And that's blatantly obvious with people like Jones. But yeah, his no plane agenda is what clearly made me realize the entire alternative media is there actually to protect the mainstream media and keep the people misinformed and keep the people in fear. So that was huge for me. So that no plane awakening was also just, that would have been early 2011. And then I started really getting into the victim research, and that's a whole deeper rabbit hole that even some no planers still haven't gone there.
Well, real quickly, so what was it that convinced you of no planes? Because that's a pretty big jump for a lot of people, right? To get from one to the other. So what was it that convinced you? What was the tipping point there?
You could go with there's a million things wrong with it, from, all the backstories of the passengers, to the lack of actual physical evidence, the impossibilities of an aircraft traveling at that speed at sea level.
Right.
That's a big one. Okay. And then for me, honestly, it's simply fucking analyzing the footage. It's fake. It's fake footage. There's different trajectories on different flight paths as well, which also shows me, well, it's not a hologram.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's definitely fucking CGI, and all their perspectives didn't match. And again, were these mistakes left in on purpose? I think they're always showing their hand, my brother.
Yeah,
always, because they could have easily. I mean, there's shots, Baldini. I'm not saying they're a little off. There's a couple shots with Flight 175 is actually ascending and going up into the tower rather than down or straight in, and it's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, I agree. I have come to a place where it seems as if it's part of the polarization process, right? They got to keep the heat on both sides. So they release certain information they want out there, but they fill it full of poppycock. But they get people fighting about it, right? So they certainly want enough evidence out there. Okay, so just like what we see with the VAX over the last couple of days and people publicly getting it. And there are dozens of images of people clearly fraudulently getting it. right? The cap is still on, or even one of them was clearly a piece of cardboard. It wasn't.
Are you trying to tell me that William Shakespeare isn't legit?
Come on. Yeah. I mean, for fuck's sake, really? I mean, and yeah, so some of the stuff they show us is so preposterous and ridiculous that it has even, again, made the mainstream news about them using an empty syringe. And then the fact that that hits the mainstream news is, even though it's probably, most of it's local news, it's still out there. If it's there, they want you to see it. And so it's being presented, right? Not as in, oops, we made a boo-boo, but to, again, give credence to those who have confirmation bias. They want to believe it. And then also to dismiss it for those who want it dismissed. And so everybody gets a little bit of their own cheese. Right, and makes their own sandwich out of it. So yeah, for me, I mean, interesting. I was just thinking, I know this is really about your journey, although with the no planes thing, right? For me, it was I had to ignore. You said you analyzed a lot of footage, and I did that afterwards. For me, it was the physics of it, as you said. Planes can't fly that at that speed, at that altitude.
And there's a lot more to Baldini. The witnesses have no credibility. There's many shots that are attributed. But one, there's one where there's 3 shots attributed to 3 different videographers.
Okay, so you're just so I don't know if you can hear me. You're breaking up a bit, and hopefully we don't lose you. But let's see here. So we'll try to get you back. Where did you go, my friend? Well, hang on. So it looks like we have temporarily lost Brian. We'll try to pick him back up here. Stand by, please, because we're professional. This is how we do. Right here and there.
Hello?
Hello. I don't know why we lost you, but we did. All right. So
what I was saying was, and with the footage too, like there's many shots. Like there's one where there's 3 different shots that are clearly the same video, just framed differently to look like and credited to 3 different videographers. Right. You see the same stuff with the jumpers, and like you said, the physics of the plane. You just can't do it, man. And the witnesses are not credible. And there's many videos of witnesses like Evan Fairbanks, for instance, who's sitting by the towers and he doesn't even look up until the plane's like in the tower. And it's like, so the airplane is out of place, not where it's supposed to be, only 1,000 feet above you and flying over Manhattan, which would be like a bass box. And nobody's looking up to see what that sound is. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah. And again, for me, it was learning to, like, your eyes can be fooled, right? So I came at it with that perspective going, they can trick the eye. And some of it, I mean, it didn't work once I understood it. But again, I just looked at it real quick and said, okay, first, again, my dad's a pilot. And so I understood the physics of flight, and the speeds that they had were absolutely incorrect. They just couldn't be done. And the flight pattern going into the Pentagon, that was another one. And I accepted very early on that there was no plane at the Pentagon, right? But when it came to the buildings themselves, as soon as I kind of looked into the material, like the construction methods and how the building was made, an aluminum tube traveling at a high rate of speed doesn't pierce steel and concrete. No. That it just can't happen. And so as soon as I kind of put that together, then going back and looking at the images, they became preposterous, right? Like there was no way it could fool me because it clearly became CGI because I understood the physics of what was going on. So I just kind of approached it a little bit different. I go, okay, your eyes can be tricked, and I have to kind of go, deep into it. But once I understand the physics, right, you can't trick the laws of physics, right? You can bend them, but you can't break them. I've been doing that my whole career, right? I keep saying I can bend the laws of physics pretty hard, but I can't break them. All right, so so at this point, you've gotten onto this idea that there are no planes. There's getting pushback in the community. People aren't ready to accept that. And then again, so for you, once you come to this conclusion, right, then you go, okay, so what made this connection that it's now you're not afraid anymore? Where's that connection? Find me that tangent point.
I was just never afraid from the beginning because I don't give a fuck what people think. I want to know the truth, and I'm not here to make friends, and I never was. And I've made great friends along the way because they're real and I'm real. I don't give a fuck if people don't like my opinion. That's not how we're going to get to the truth. These people have been fucking holding us down and lying to us and enslaving us for years, and they have the power of this fucking media machine to completely manipulate everybody. I'm not playing with kid gloves. So you know what I did when I got the kickback from the community about no planes? I went deeper, because it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
That gets next level than that. Because then once you start to look into the actual occupants of the towers, you're going to run into a real lot of fucking problems. And then you're going to find out there's not even one video. So there's 52 videos allegedly filming an off-course unexpected jet in the most crowded skyline in the country doing 500 miles an hour. Yet all of them just filmed the hole in the building or shut their cameras off. Nobody panned down to show the tens of thousands of people running out of the building, the part that they couldn't fake. None of the 4 helicopters in the sky, which weren't even real helicopters, and we could break down that footage if we had time. We can't do that now, but that's not even real footage. And they never panned down to film the street. And you got people like the Harley guy and all these other people doing street interviews, yet nobody's filming the people. There's no video of anybody leaving the towers.
Right.
And then all these ideas come in. Well, where's all the missing contents? Where's the thousands of miles of phone cord? Where's all the safes? Where's all the desks? Where's all the refrigerators? Where's all the bodies? Oh, everything just evaporated. No, the shit just wasn't in there. It never was.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of evidence that they have been empty mostly for years, other than a few floors.
I've been trying to tell people for 10 years. They won't look at it. They were emptied. It's documented that they were down 20% by 98.
Yeah.
But the 93 bombing was to scare people out on their own. And none of it was suspicious. And no, they didn't sneak around in the middle of the night and put bombs in there. And no, they didn't tell people not to come to work the next day. That's all the bullshit they want to throw at you. And no, like when Giuliani came out on TV, Giuliani, come on, it's a psyop. He comes out on TV and tells you, oh, we shipped all the debris to China already. That's a psyop. That's because there was a lack of debris, because the towers were basically a shell of what you were told. There were real things in there, like the observation deck and the windows of the world on the roof. You could take elevators that skipped a huge portion of the floors, all the way through the entire impact zone. You could go up there. You could punch a ticket, and people were there the week before or whatever. That's legitimate. But you know what else? People want to know why. Then how did they not turn those people away? That would be suspicious. Well, that's why the plane supposedly hit at 8:45, because the tourist attractions didn't open until 9:30. Hey, guess what? You're not coming in. The building's shut down. There's a plane stuck in it. You know what? You're not even getting within 10 blocks of it, and it's not suspicious. Haven't you seen the news?
Yeah, exactly, and it's very much in a way reminiscent of Handy Shook, in that building was empty for a number of years prior, and a variety of things indicate that, from them not removing asbestos to there being no internet access being provided to that for at least 5 years prior to the alleged event, and that is one that certainly gets my goat.
And if you're somebody like, I know most of the people who have looked into photo fakery now, go back and look through the victim memorials. It's a joke, man. It'd be like Rob Simmons sloppy work, okay? It's a joke. Yeah. And there's 2,600 missing death certificates. And where are the families every 9/11? Why isn't my Facebook page blown up with all these people at the cemetery or at my Uncle James' house because our Uncle Jimmy died in the towers? Or here's pictures of Bobby, blah, 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 with 3,000 people in the U.S. dead from it? You'd think you'd be absolutely flooded. But no, never happens. And they never call into my show, and I challenge them every year. They're full of it.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. So about 4 years on that. And so now we're at 2013, 2014, roughly in that neighborhood. Then what's the next step after that? Because that's a pretty deep rabbit hole, right? I mean, there are people still digging through that particular rabbit hole. But clearly there are many others. And so what was the next awakening event for you?
Yeah. We would have to back it up to 2011 for a second.
Okay, sure.
I got into Apollo in 2011, and it took a weekend. I mean, not even a weekend. Yeah. It's a joke, right? Yeah. Apollo's a joke. So I knew NASA was fake in that regards, but I still thought it was, to lie to the Russians or whatever, the whole thing.
Yep.
And then as the school events started rolling out, those are obviously real easy for me because of 9/11. So we don't need to go down those roads. Every single one, same story, right?
Yep.
On the NASA thing, though, started looking into satellites and started looking into the ISS come 2013. Now, I'm still heavy into the 9/11, though. By 2014, though, with all the bullshit that was going on in 9/11 and all the name calling and shill calling and all the heat I was taking, I needed a break, and I completely stopped doing broadcasts. And then, like a few months later, in the summer of 2014, I got hit with a disinfo piece on Flat Earth. It was like a 5-minute disinfo piece, but one of the key things they said in it, and it showed the disc going up in space. And this was early, there wasn't really anything out yet except for like Matt Powerland,
Right.
but I hadn't seen him yet. And it was a channel called Stuff They Don't Want You to Know, and I played the clip before to show people. But there's like hundreds of videos, every conspiracy you can imagine, all disinfo pieces, and this one showed the disc up in space, water's going over the edge that had mountains and all this other shit. But right in the beginning, he's like, yeah, flat Earth is, and he's showing the spacewalk. And he's like, flat Earthers, they think that all of NASA's imagery is fake. And the guy's like, I know pictures can be fake, but to think all the imagery is fake. And right then, that was the bell went off in my head. I'm like, Flight 175 is fake. All the 9/11 imagery is fake. And the moon landing's fake. Of course all the imagery is fake. But I didn't realize the Earth was flat yet. It took a few months going in. And I did talk about it in a couple of radio shows in late 2014. Mm-hmm. They're still up on my site. Some of the stuff I said in it, it's embarrassing. People are welcome to go listen to it, because I was still coming to an understanding of how this place was even allegedly laid out, know. But I was totally open to it right off the bat. So that was a whole rabbit hole I went in, deep, right? Obviously, everybody knows how that goes, right? I was very vocal about Flat Earth, but I wasn't doing shows, but I was doing the Facebook thing. Facebook groups, the memes, the whole thing. I was very, very vocal about it. And then a couple months later, the Mandela effect hit me, right? So I got both of these things going on at the same time. And then I had, what really got me is I've seen a lot of my Flat Earth friends falling for a lot of 9/11 disinfo in 2017. And I was like, James, we haven't done a show in 3 years. I'm like, you need to come do a 9/11 show with me. And we did 2 shows. It's like 9 hours of content. And we just laid out absolutely everything. Then I started uploading shows to YouTube. They lasted for a little while. At the time, they weren't all getting strikes yet. And then I started to get really deep into the Mandela effect. And in 2018, the middle of 2018 in the summer, I went on a couple roundtable shows. And then I'm like, well, fuck this. I need to do my own videos. And here we are today.
So back at it. Yeah. Right on. Okay. So once you've kind of come out of that, right, and you come to the realization for yourself, and now you've been on a process for longer than most, right? So we're coming up on like 10 years overall of putting together videos and trying to get the word out and tell people. And you've seen, I would say, probably more than most. Cognitive dissonance happen, and the pushback that comes when people aren't ready from trying to hear new information. What is it that kind of keeps you going, right? That keeps you focused in the face of so much opprobrium and pushback, and
because I know that these topics are very important. I know that I'm right. That doesn't mean right about every aspect. I know that I'm right to the degree of what I need people to look at, right? Like, I know that we don't live on a globe. I know the Mandela effect's happening. I know 9/11's a hoax, right? So it's very important for people to wake up to these truths. And I know I'm ignorant to many other truths out there that I haven't got to yet, right? Of course I am. How could I? I'm so, and I'm not a one topic guy, but I am heavily involved in several topics, but I can't hit 20 topics at once,
Right.
And, but I don't shoot them down. I don't call them psyops, and I don't call them disinfo without looking at them. And I do get very, and this is my thing, I get very discouraged when people in these truth communities shoot these topics down, and I keep dealing with it. It's a repetitive process. Just like every 4 years we see truthers fall for the fucking left-right paradigm, right? It's a joke. Well, every few years I see truthers tell me I'm running a psyop or I'm falling for a psyop, and that's not real. And before you know it, there's going to be thousands and thousands of people talking about it, just like I was with No Planes, just like I was with I'm not going to say I was with any of these, because there are always people before me, but with all those major topics, people for a few years, they're not ready to take it in. Even people that have come to the realization they've been lied to about everything about where we live, they're not ready to talk about the realities changing. But I prove all the time that everybody's affected, Baldini. I love doing that.
I know.
I love doing it. And I know it might ruffle some people's feathers. I don't give a fuck. I'm not doing it to pick on anybody. I always say we're the best because we are the best. All of us, we're all special. We're all going through these times. We're all in this reality, and it's shifting for all of us. We need to recognize it. No, I don't. And, we all have different theories on what's causing it, what it means. It's clearly profound. It's changed people's bodies, land masses, not just movies and logos and Bibles, and everything's freaking changing. Rules of the English language. I mean, everything you could imagine is changing. There's obviously something profound about it. It needs to be recognized. Just like if all these events are fake, well, then the media doesn't have control over you anymore. You don't need to live in fear. If everybody knew that 9/11 was a hoax, would anybody be scared of the coronavirus and the media? No. Of
Well,
course not.
and as it turns out, nearly everyone in the truth community is, barefaced, at least to some degree, right?
Yeah.
From completely to pushing back on it to trying not to, and nobody's afraid. That's for sure. And I, again, couldn't be more proud of our community in the way we've responded, not being cruel or mean generally to others, or calling them names or any of that sort of stuff, but really adjuring people to do the research and study for themselves and encouraging them. So I've been super proud for the most part of what I've seen, which is terrific. In your experience, what are some of the most effective means to get people to question some of these things? You've had plenty of experience and plenty of topics, plenty of practice. What are you, in your estimation, what are some of the best ways to get people to look at these topics, especially if they're kind of dead set against them?
Find out what will resonate with them and pick your spots. That for people like that. That's what you do.
You're saying
I just wait for people that are triggered by the Mandela effect, for instance. It's easy. I just wait till they slip up and Mandela effects are coming out their mouth and people are sending me timestamp links, or I just see them talking. For other topics, it's like if you hear somebody say something, like if you heard somebody say, oh, I see this thing that's so far away, boom, you hit him with flat Earth, right? You have to pick your spots with certain people, or same thing with COVID too. There's a lot of ways to pick your spots with people with the corona, because when you're out in public, man, people see through it, but they still can't accept that they're being lied to on that level, but they see the inconsistencies, man.
So what I hear you say is know your audience and pick the opportunity.
Sometimes when you have to break it down to something on a personal level with somebody, you're really concerned with that person individually and waking them up. Yeah, pick your spots. Obviously, when I'm doing my show and we're talking right now, I'm not really picking too many spots. I'm all over the place.
Yeah, but again, you're talking to a much wider group versus kind of the one-on-one, as you say, right? Find something that's going to appeal to them. Well, you wouldn't necessarily know that when you're talking to, we got 185 here now, right? So you wouldn't know what each of them might be interested in. So I understand what you're doing from a presentation perspective is you're revealing information as it comes by. But many of the people in our community, right, are in the trenches, the firsthand conversations that they're having with friends and family who may not only not interested, but are pushing back hard, right, and causing a lot of issues, right, in relationships. And so there's always these questions, right? What can we do to better wake people up? And certainly with someone with a lot of experience as you have, and I would say you've been fairly effective, right? A lot of people continue to look to you for new information as well as old information, and to put these things together. All right, so that's kind of what I'm looking for is, which things are, in your opinion, in your experience, the most effective kinds of questions or pieces of information to drop in front of them. What are the most effective seeds that you can plant?
Well, the most effective seeds I can plant is I try to make correlations from one event to another or one topic to another and make people understand. Like for instance, I was trying to get people to understand my views of 9/11. I'd be like, well, look how we look at, people that believe the moon landing. You know what I mean? Like, they saw it on TV, so they believe it. Well, why do 9/11 truthers believe, what we saw in the documentaries? Because that was our TV. I mean, it's the same thing. I try to make correlations like that a lot, or like I said earlier, like if you see media fakery in one thing, I try and point it out in another. And it just seems to reciprocate all the way around, And with the Mandela effect, it's a little different because when you know people personally, you can really know how to bring up things that are close and personal to them because you know what type of music they listen to. You know if they're into geography, or if they're into the Bible, or if they're into certain movies, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different
And
approaches. Like when Karen,
that's a really interesting aspect about ME versus some of the others, right? Because
yeah,
what I'm working on, in terms of the Awakening Project, one of the things that I've found is using what I call, high proximity, low emotional impact pieces, which are irrefutable pieces of evidence that have no emotional impact on the person, but you can point out to them this is a place where the government has lied, right? And it's well acknowledged, and it's not has no effect upon them. Right, so they don't have an emotional tie to it, and those are often very effective. And I love what you said next, right, which is to use kind of pattern recognition. You go, see the correlation between this and this. It's not one instance. This is a pattern, right? So now we have a developing pattern. But the opposite is true when it comes to ME, which is to choose something that's close to them that they know really well, right? Because they can't. They would, I've had some discussions with some folks, and if they don't know it very well, they're like, meh, I don't know, could be one way or the other.
Yeah.
But when you talk about something that they are very emotionally connected to, song lyrics or Bible verses or whatever it is, that they feel they're 100% right about. And when that is not the way they thought it was, that's the opportunity. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and unfortunately, many people take the. There's different levels of what we call take the update, but unfortunately, many people, it's a lot of self-doubt, and that's where I get frustrated, because we all know that coming through this journey, not we all, but most of the people here in this chat, we all know that it's much more than the physical here. And that's my whole point. This Mandela effect, it's just a shitty name for what our reality is. And we're realizing things are supernaturally changing. In my opinion, it's always been going on, but it's absolutely speeding up. You can come into your own theories of why. I know people talk about resets. We can talk about the end of the realm, the unveiling of the veil. I mean, there's all different ways to look at it, right? People biblically can come up with all different conclusions as well, I'm sure. But, for me, Baldini, we're living on God's green earth, but we are surrounded by the devil's deception and artificialness. Yep. And this is showing us that there truly is a spiritual side, and to ignore it would be a big mistake for me. Like, okay, so there's people that'll say, oh, well, the word of God can't change, right? And then they won't even look to see if what I've said has actually changed, when the fact is, when it does change, because I never say, hey, this verse has changed, and give them the answer. I make people fill in the blanks, to prove that they remember exactly what we remember. But then you tell them it's changed, and a lot of them, they won't even check, because they'll say the word of God can't change it. Here's the thing. There's always a different opinion on whose word that is in the book, right? Whether it's the word of God, the word of man, the word of an alien, the word of AI, whatever you want to believe the word is in that book, well, it's changed. Even supernaturally in the past, the Bibles that are in your house, the Bibles that are in your nana's attic, they've all changed. So you can interpret that as what you want. You can call it God, you can call it Satan. But to ignore that and say you're on a journey for truth, whew, man, that really grinds my gears.
Well, and probably, from my perspective, anyone that's probably, listened to me for any period of time would probably know, I would say also ill-advised, because if you do that, then you're putting a book, right, above the creator. The best way is to have that personal connection with the creator, right? And then you can't be tricked or lied to, because you put everything past the creator. If you trust that book and that book alone, then one, you'll ignore that direct connection with the creator, and two, if the book changes, then and you it puts you in a spot where you can't defend it, and suddenly your entire foundation, right, falls apart. And I find this very concerning for many people who I think are great people, right, but they put a lot of emphasis on trusting a religion, essentially, right? And if you elevate the words in that book, which again, anybody who knows me knows that I put a great deal of weight into it. I think there's an enormous amount of spiritual wisdom. I think many of the stories are certainly true. I think that most of it is probably intact. I think there are some parts that have changed for sure, but that is typically used to cause people to throw the whole thing out, right? You change a little bit, you show the discrepancy, and then get people to throw the whole thing out. Then they've thrown 99% of truth away, right? That's exactly what you wanted without having to change any of it. So it's perfect. But if people are putting all their marbles in that one bag without that direct connection with Dad, then I think you're on dangerous ground. And this is even in the book it says, right, that Jesus very clearly said that if it were possible, right, even the elect would be fooled, right, they'd be deceived.
Yes.
And he said over and over, be not deceived. And it also says that they will be given a strong delusion that they should believe a lie. And there is no probably more strong delusion than to see things around you change and not have any kind of awareness of it or even acknowledgement of it. If you can't acknowledge what's happening around you, and I think this is I think to me this is the again, I don't know what's going on for sure. I'll tell you that, and we'll talk about it on your stream when we specifically look at those at that topic. But for me, again, I don't know what the fuck is going on. You're right. I'm not any smarter than anybody else on that topic. But it does appear that something's happening, and if you can't acknowledge it, if it makes you fearful, then you're in a tough spot if you've got no place to be grounded, right? So I always encourage people go to the source, and as it also says, if anybody lacks wisdom, let him ask, right? And that's always my encouragement. It takes it out of my hand. I can't mislead anybody, or I have no teachings that I can be responsible for anybody else's decisions. I go, hey, go to the source, right? Ask Dad. I agree that when things of every kind, but especially what people are putting their faith in, is subject to potential changes, that's a different beast, right? That puts people in a very awkward spot. And as Crow likes to say, belief is the enemy of knowing. In that sense, it couldn't be more true.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
All right.
Yeah, that was a great rant by you. Yeah, man. I mean, there's nothing more falling for the delusion than ignoring the supernatural changes around you. And in my opinion, there's a tug of war. I used to come from the aspect it was all the good side, all that consciousness and all the creator. I do think there's definitely some of the bad part at play. If I could real quick talk about the updates, people, Baldini, this might be a little deep for some people, but let's just go at it, right? So you bring up a topic to somebody, right? So like with the Mandela effect, and you tell them, oh no, it was never what you just said, right? And they're so sure, but then all of a sudden they'll be like, oh, I must have just misremembered, blah 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 blah. That's the self-doubt. That's not having the trust in yourself. That's really frustrating for me as well, because we, if anything, on this journey have learned to trust ourselves, trust our senses, our memories. Part of that, don't trust what we're being told, especially when you have an anchor memory of something. And we all have the same anchor memories for a lot of them right down the line. But besides that, then there'll be the people where you'll bring up something to them, they never knew about it, and then all of a sudden, like a switch will turn on. And they'll start repeating like what would be in Wikipedia about this, event that came out of nowhere or this change. And it's like, okay, where did that come from? And I'm telling you, people can think I'm crazy, but our consciousness is constantly observed, and it waits for the opportunity. The other side, the dark side, if you will, the opposite of the creator, call it Satan, call it the bad guy if you want. And these Mandela effect updates are coming from that side because they come in to cause people doubt, to not see the changes, and they wait for the opportune time, and I've seen them strike within milliseconds. So we are constantly being observed by what I like to call the update network. I look at the Mandela effect as a shitty word, first of all. It's a terrible word. Just like flat earth is a terrible word. It's all the same shit, right? Terrible word, yeah. Mandela effect.
Labels are for soup cans, right?
Yeah, it's how our reality operates. I look at it as a bunch of frequencies, and we're all in this one reality. We're not jumping timelines, and we didn't go old Earth, new Earth, or time travel. For different reasons, I rule those out. Incremental changes, residue. There's flip-flops. There's a lot of reasons. But for me, everything's happening here and now. And for whatever reason, a lot of these other people, and I think it's the years and years of being beat down with the indoctrination and just the way that their personality is now from that, even though they see the changes and they have the same memories as us, they operate on these same frequencies, but they pick up that update network, that self-doubt frequency that comes around. We see it, we recognize it, and we block it out, and it just permeates through them. Does that make sense? I mean, that's a lot of theory, but that's how I feel.
It does. And I would say from my observation, I mean, I don't have any way probably to absolutely prove or confirm that, but I mean, my observation agrees with that anyway, that yes, they seem to, it's a weird thing as I observe social media. Like there's some people that I keep in my, quote, friends list or whatever, specifically because they are some of the most compliant sheeple, and they're not dumb, right? They're otherwise very bright people, but I know that anything that happens that's released in the media, they're going to be the first ones to virtue signal and crow about how these are the first people going, our best shot, right? They're going to line up to get this thing because they virtue signal at everything. And so I keep, they're in my friends list specifically for that purpose, so I can kind of keep an eye on it. And they do respond exactly as you're saying, as though it is an update, right? Like Bunny in chat was saying that Matt at Quantum of Conscience talks about kind of update like a firmware flash, and I'm like, it does kind of look like that, and so and they seem to have also no memory of the past as well, right? Like something can have happened just a few weeks ago, and they don't remember, right? Like say for example, Foul Cheese saying at the outset of this thing that masks weren't effective and people shouldn't wear the mask because we should leave those for the medical profession, those frontline workers, those heroes, and that it was not good for you. Until they change their mind. And that was very clearly out there. And now, again, if you tell people that, they'll say, no, that never happened. You're just a conspiracy theorist. It's like, what the hell? Yeah, what the hell is wrong with you?
It's crazy.
It is crazy, right? And they're not dumb people, but it is the same experience when you start talking to them. And like sometimes I'll be planting seeds with a few people, and you can see that light begin to flicker just a little bit, like they're about to make that connection, and suddenly it just blanks out, right? And that sheep look comes over, and it's that cognitive dissonance kicks right in, and you're like, oh crap, and you know it before they open their mouth and go, but you just see it happen, and it's like something prevents that penny from dropping, and they're just so close, and they just can't do it. I know. And it's so frustrating, especially when it's people that are good people, right? Otherwise good people, and you know where they're headed, and it is. As you said, it is not. It should be very recognizable that this is definitely a spiritual component to it. No matter how you slice this, there is absolutely a spiritual component, and from my perspective, it always has been. Right? You mean it's spiritual? Yeah. Always has been, right? Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I think that's for me, that's what it's all about. Is that spiritual aspect, and everything else is kind of the distraction, right? It's here to distract you from that aspect of coming to that. But people, when they ignore it, it is though they cannot make it's a bridge too far, right? They just can't get there.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating because I've caught everybody. I mean, every big name, truth, a huge name, pastors and preachers. I mean, just a quick rundown. If you could just give me like 60 seconds. I mean. A few Mandela effects of people that might be new to it. And Mr. Rogers, he never said it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Ricky Ricardo now never said, Lucy, you got some splaining to do. Listen, we've all said that in the Cuban accent. And I know this is beginner stuff for some people, but just real quick, when I say he's never said it, I mean, you could take out any recording you have. You'll never find an episode where he did it. The Monopoly Man now has never had a monocle. The Scarecrow has a gun in The Wizard of Oz. There's many changes. The Man Behind the Curtain, which is an iconic quote that was spawned from The Wizard of Oz, now says that man behind the curtain instead of the man behind the curtain. Huge historical events like Black Tom. Nobody's ever heard of the first terror attack on U.S. soil till Brian started doing videos 2.5 years ago about it. Isn't that pretty ironic how I would be the one to tell everybody about it? When New York was attacked, the Statue of Liberty was damaged so bad that nobody's ever been to the torch, yet we've spoken to people that have been to the torch, including the Truth Seeker 69's mother that has been to the torch, but now that's impossible in this reality. Judge Judy now never had a gavel. There's changes with my God, the jet engine changes. The engines now have always been way out in front of the wings.
That weirded me out. Yeah, that weirded me out. And so, again, and when we talk on your channel, right? So don't be mad at me if there are some of them. I've given this a lot of thought. And there's some of them potentially I could explain, right? Yeah. But it doesn't mean, even that doesn't mean that it's not a thing. Right, you know what I mean? Because it is a thing. To me, there's no question. It is a thing. What causes it? Now, that again, there's a question, and I don't really know. There's some of them I could individually go, this is a possibility, and did it happen that way? Fuck, I don't know, because I don't know, right? But I can say, it's plausible, right? There are numerous plausible things. So a couple of them, right? I think I could sort of explain if it were like just a normal thing, but to dismiss it and say this is not happening, It seems
Yeah,
preposterous.
there's too many.
There's too
I mean,
much.
not only is there too many, there's thousands of them. But I mean, even if you're 100% you're sure about one of them, it's real. And there's not anybody that I can't get with probably 100 of them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
there might be. I might have. Yeah, I mean, I might have put out some that you disagree with, but I would guess that the large majority, as long as there's stuff you resonate with, everybody's agreeing with
and
them.
for me, Brian, it's not even that I disagree with it, right? It was just I was trying to figure out how, and
Yeah.
ultimately, what I came to was that how wasn't nearly as important as why. So for example, I put it in terms of looking at because so much of what I see from the controllers, if you want to call them that, I don't like calling them elites, right, or whatever, but the powers that ought not be, however you want to call them, so much of what I see with them is very consistent and comports very well with stage magic. It's mostly misdirection. Look over here, right, and then look over here, and a huge amount of it has to do with compliance and consent.
Mm-hmm.
You agree with a certain premise, and just like, for example, the shape of the Earth. You were given this as a child when you couldn't really make any other decision, even when you had good questions and said, "Hey, that doesn't work." They just kind of force it on you. You go, "Okay," and so you ultimately consent to it. And so much of this has to do with those things. And so when I look at it in terms of that, what I see is that again. The how doesn't matter, right? The mechanics of the stage magic doesn't matter. The why is the important part, right? Which is ultimately to get people not to trust their own instincts and their own memories, right? So ultimately, to me, the important factor is that with this in play, it means that it doesn't matter which side of it that you're on, whether you just think that people misremember a whole lot of shit, and I mean like a whole lot, like half your life at this point is misremembered. That just doesn't seem plausible, right? Or on the other hand, that things can change with an update, right? So somebody pulling a lever somewhere and just changes everything. But from either of those sides, right, it could instantiate a sense where you can't trust your own recollection, your own memories, and your own senses, right? In the way that they have gotten us to ignore our senses when it comes to the nature of Earth.
Yeah.
It presents itself as flat and motionless, and yet they tell us that it is not. And so we are expected to accept their word. Well, of course, as it's often been said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And when I looked into it, I found that they did not have it. Although they had long claimed to have it, they didn't have that either, right? So all these boxes that are empty. And so when you start opening the boxes and you realize that they're empty. So ultimately, when I come to this topic, right, I go, it's not that I disagree with any of them. There are some of them I can work through a plausible way it may have occurred. But again, it doesn't matter. The mechanics of it matter far less than the ultimate effect of it, which is, again, to me, you have to acknowledge that it is a thing. It is occurring, and it's occurring at an exponential rate of increase. And therefore, so what does that mean? Well, again, for many people, it means that they feel like they cannot trust their own. And again, we see that, just as I was saying, right? We see people who have the short memory of a goldfish. They cannot remember what happened from one day to the next. And it is so almost identical to the barn wall on Animal Farm.
Yeah, and that's how I understand. That's their perspective. My perspective of it is, it's not about not trusting my memory of it. My perspective is it's clues that this place is artificial, and I think we're rapidly on a graduating process out of it. That's the way I look at it. Mm-hmm. But the other thing too is I want to talk about pointing out people that are Mandela affected with followings. There's two reasons I do it. It's not just because they have a big following, and I want everybody to see it. That's obviously one of the major reasons. I also we're not any closer to figuring out what's happening here, really. Like, we have a lot of cool theories, right? Yeah. We don't really know. I would like some more hands on deck. We have a lot of smart people here, and obviously it's very important. It permeates every facet of research, whether you think it does or it doesn't. And the reason I like to point out people are personally affected is I make it personal to them, because it's easy for somebody to say, oh, well, that doesn't affect me. Those people maybe they are going through something, but it doesn't affect me. But when I get you tripping up and you don't even know what's written in your book, you don't know any movie quotes anymore, you don't know this, I mean, if I ask anybody what does Cuba look like, they would probably say a small island to the southeast of Florida. And they'd all be wrong. And I'd like to talk about that and land masses for a minute, because then people will be like, oh, well, Brian, the globe's fake, or, map projections change, maps are revised, maps are fake, Google Earth. Dude, I get all of that. But if you remember Cuba as a small island to the southeast of Florida, Well, now it's about the size of Florida on its side. It's drifted way west and it's almost touching Mexico. But here's the thing. Did you agree with me that it was a small island to the southeast of Florida? Okay. Can you show me that on any map of any age or any globe in your basement? You can't, because they've all supernaturally changed, and it's a large landmass the size of Florida that's drifted west in real life, in all the maps, in all the globes, supernaturally, not a map projection thing.
Yeah, it's hard. Again, it's difficult to grasp it, right?
Yeah.
The
Oh,
placement
yeah,
the
of course.
placement of South America, right, seems sort
Yeah.
of odd, right? For many people, it always appeared to be pretty much directly south of America, of the North America, and no, it's very very far to the east. In fact, the west coast of South America is almost at the east coast of the United States, and so it's very very far to the east on current map projections. There's a ton of stuff like that, right? Like the position of jet engines, as you mentioned earlier. That was one that really freaked me out because I grew up. My dad's a pilot. I flew with him numerous times, and I used to fly about 3 or 4 times a week for about 3.5 years. So I got a lot of frequent flyer miles for a period of time, working for a couple of manufacturers, and I was flying all over the U.S. and all over the world. And often I would sit over the wing section, and so you'd think I was familiar with it,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like, what
Yeah.
the hell is going on
And,
here? There's,
and how about all the noise that comes from it? Because all the flaps and the mechanics that are opening on the wings, and they're way forward, and it's like a machine shop out there, dude. Makes so much noise now.
in fact, even I noted when I took the flight to go to Flattoberfest, which is the first time I traveled in 4 or 5 years, that the engine seemed to make it entirely, like, I was like, did they change the type of engine that they're using on this aircraft? Because it sounded different. I thought that was just me. So I don't know. Again, there's so many weird things. And again, I try to just take it all in stride. And again, my focus is a little bit different. And I continue to say, it doesn't mean that mine is right, anybody else is wrong. It's just, I think we should all do what we're supposed to be doing, right? Because we're all going to have different, things. And so my focus right now is doing what we're doing right now, right? Sort of telling stories and really bringing the community close together. And at this point, right, really trying to look in the idea of community living, right, to see if we can advance that in multiple places across the plain. So definitely focused on that. So, but again, I think everybody should do what they feel compelled and called to do, whatever is nudging you right now. One of the things I can tell you for sure that I sense, and I think many of us are, is that I hear the drums of war, whatever you want to say about that.
I mean, I think a lot of us have made life-changing decisions in this last year. I mean, for me personally, you guys know, and I got a little story about today too, about a post I saw today from my family. Remind me at the end of this quick story.
Sure.
So for me, everybody, maybe not everybody, but I mean, I left where I've lived my entire life. I'm 43 now. I left Lowell, Massachusetts for the first time in my whole life, other than 1 year living in a neighboring city or town or whatever. But I left that area for the first time in my whole life. And I've been back and forth between, I moved to Karen's house. I spent a lot of time out in California with 3 trips to see Steffi, and I'm back at Karen's house. And this is where I live now. I don't live in Massachusetts anymore because I made the decision that I couldn't be living under the same roof as people that were completely asleep. And it was so bad. Like a lot of people know, my cousin really all into Trump, the whole thing. He actually hung Trump flags on the house. And I told you guys at the beginning of this that his wife is a nurse. We're talking about COVID obviously now, right? His wife is a nurse. So, in the first couple of weeks, I started to be able to get through to her a little bit, right? And this is when I was still living there because I moved out in, I think it was June. Correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, you're in the chat. It was June, right? When I came down here. This thing started in March, as we know, for the most part. They started emptying the buildings and all that, the hospitals. Yep. Telling you it was overflowing, we're waiting in, the whole thing. But I was making some points that she was understanding because she works at the hospital. She's a nurse, right? And things weren't adding up. But all it took is, and I knew it too, once they put some of the nurses at the testing centers outside, even though nothing was going on, they were completely psyoped. And at that point, she was all in. And I knew I needed to go. Long story short, and I showed Karen this post this morning too. She made this whole post on Facebook about how she's so proud that she's going to be the one administer the vaccines, to curb COVID for good, this whole rant about how they're hero, and I'm just like, oh fuck me in the
Oh
goat
God.
house.
Yeah, I know. Ugh. So gross. I'm sorry, man. That's just gross. I gotta go
Yeah,
take a
man.
shower.
Uh,
Oh man,
no.
oh, you nasty, bro. That shit bad, man. Oh
Yeah.
God.
But
Okay,
now it's like I couldn't, I had to stay segregated in my room all the time. There's nobody to talk to. Now I'm here. I could talk to Karen and Ted all day about whatever.
yeah. No, I love Karen and Ted. They're some of my favorite, absolute
And
favorite
and,
people.
and we have other friends around here too. Obviously, I mean we've been to Bob's
Yep.
house a bunch of times, and so
Well,
it's
don't
it's
get too excited, but I am feeling a pretty strong nudge to head to that part of the country my own self. And so, as we look around for a place to set up camp, maybe in your backyard, who knows?
oh shit,
I know, right?
oh shit.
Because if you get Zach and Cammy and I in a fully functioning lab, we're going to blow shit up. It's going to take us about 2 weeks, and we'll blow the shit up.
I'm sure, man.
That's how we do. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, because you again, you are noted for your solid research and your how thorough you are. Let's say, what advice or what notes could you give on the nature of how you approach the research, and what things do you look for?
Oh,
What are your
oh.
what are your patterns that you're looking for, that sort of thing, when you're looking at these things?
Well, first off, I would have to say I have to approach everything with zero emotion and zero bias, other than the fact that I know that everything they present is usually fake. I do have that bias. For me, honestly, and I've been saying it a while, it's all fake till proven real to me. And it's worked out just fine for me because it's almost always been all fake till proven real. Now, if something's going to be real and it's proven to me, then okay. But yeah, that's kind of it. Obviously, you look for things like inconsistencies, and I would say you look for things like bad acting and stuff like that, Baldini, but I don't look at that type of stuff anymore.
Hmm.
I mean, with COVID, you kind of have to because it's happening now. But I don't look at fake shootings and fake, terror events and all that anymore, and
Yeah,
crisis act. I don't give my energy to that anymore because that's a complete script. It's completely fake, and there's other people that can break it down now.
yeah.
I don't need to be doing that. I'm more about what's this spiritual journey we're on? Where are we going? Why am I seeing these Mandela effect changes? What really are the other secrets to the flat Earth? Is there more land? Who knows what's going on? These are the type of things that I'm more interested in than try and dissect the fake news, the fake events, the fake fear porn. I put no energy into it anymore, and I know that's disappointed some people because I was the media fakery guy for a long time, but all the media is fake, just like the NASA fakery. I don't look at NASA fakery anymore. It's all fake. What's the point? Why am I going to waste my fucking time, man?
Yeah, and this is part of what Rose and I do on Poppycock Report, right? We are of the same mind that it's all fake until proven otherwise. We will often break things down, right, to show people what we're looking for, but we usually recognize right away, right? We don't.
Can I say
we,
one thing?
Yeah,
One thing.
yeah,
I'm
yeah. Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
I just one thing I do like to break down still is disinformation and controlled opposition and hit pieces that I think are significant because you'll see me address those types of things a lot when they put out a big hit piece against Mandela effect or flat Earth or there's serious controlled opposition like a Tom Hanks or a Neil deGrasse. I like to address stuff like that more than address any type of video clips from any type of media or event. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I got you. One thing I meticulously avoid any sort of drama. That's just not my bag. But let's see. Can we start that with that bridge? Yes. Cammy. Yes. Absolutely. But yeah, this is again. That's something that I think for many people, once you kind of learn it, and I don't know, sort of like the line from Cypher in the Matrix, right? Of like, I don't even notice it anymore, right? You just see
Yeah.
psyop bullshit, false flag,
Yes.
right? It's like, nah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I don't even,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I don't see it anymore.
This is a little different right now because people are wearing masks and so are their kids. So this is a whole different animal right now, what's going on right now. And this has been another almost an awakening process for me in a sense where not an awakening process, but I think we've all adapted in ways, right, as well, for this. And as anybody has seen with me going out to California, I did a lot of stuff on the street talking to people, and I've never done anything like that before in my life, and it seemed to go fairly productive. Obviously, everything's still closed,
Yeah,
but
right.
we definitely talked to some people and got some good thoughts from people and had some great conversations. And I did learn a lesson that it's not so much everybody in the world is asleep, although most people are. But there are good chunk of the people that aren't as asleep as we think, but they just are afraid to speak out and they think they have absolutely nobody to speak to. And these aren't people in YouTube chats and whatnot. These are just
Yeah.
business owners and whatnot, people on the street. And when you talk to them and you break the ice with them, man, I mean, I was talking to one guy in my first trip out to Cali. I was talking to him about, because he was shutting down his restaurant and doing just takeout or whatever. This was like the first round of it. And I was like, telling him how ridiculous it is and blah, blah. And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, well, I know 9/11's an inside job. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, so you know that's a lie? And then I started correlating it back to the lies and the inconsistencies that we see now, including the fact, that there's a lack of victims anywhere. I mean, So again, you pick your spots, and then I use those strategies that we talked about earlier, But right now, things have changed. It's different than Flat Earth. It's different than Mandela Effect. It's different than 9/11. Okay, none of us were researching 9/11 when it went down. I mean, we all looked at it years later, pretty much all of us. Now we're all trying to decipher this in real time. So we are going to make mistakes. We have to own up to those mistakes, address them, correct them, and that's fine.
Yep.
That's part of the process. But the other thing is, we can to a degree, and people are going to hate me for this, we could kind of take a little bit more time waking people up to the globe lie or the reality shifts. But right now, there's kids wearing masks. They did it all through the summer. There's no time for closet truthers, and there's no time for fucking kid gloves. And everybody that walks the walk, everybody that talks the talk needs to walk the walk and lead by example.
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, my position is to try to better support the community, right? And with the idea that, as you said, there are more people out there perhaps than are open about it, but they are afraid to speak of it because they don't know anybody. And the more people kind of get tuned into communities like this and have an opportunity to do this, I think the more it builds confidence to where we can go out and talk to a few more people, and then they can realize that there are a whole group of us. I would love to see, again, this become, I don't like to use the word viral, right? But to spread in a way that allows people to know that they are not alone, and that they should speak up, right? Because without people speaking up, silence is a kind of compliance. You're just letting it go. And, I certainly am compelled to speak up where possible. And, again, for me, much of that is to support this community. But whatever it is, again, I just adjure people, whatever it is that you feel compelled to do, whether that's to have a channel or whether that's to support people who do, or whether that's to do, to learn things on your own, to prepare for, when the shit hits the fan, or whatever it is, whatever you are feeling compelled to do. Again, it feels like the clock is ticking. And that we should begin to do those things in earnest. And I don't know about you on that one, Brian, but I know that many of us in this community are feeling that same way. The time to weigh these things is over, and the time to act on them is now.
Yeah, absolutely. The time to act on them is now. And even it's happened a lot faster than anybody in this truth community could have ever imagined, how quick this world has changed in just a few months with what's going on with COVID. And obviously, with the events that we just talked about and everything, right? The last thing I do is promote fear porn, right? Because I have no fear. But I have made some mistakes and called some things fear porn that turned out to come to fruition, like what they're actually doing to the kids in the schools. When we first saw that in the first month or two, like, we didn't think that was really going to happen. Maybe all the plastic barriers and everybody's apart, everybody's wearing masks, and it's all happening right now, man. So we don't have time to not address this right now, and we have to take this fucking thing head on, and we have to be vocal. I know a lot of people don't agree with this, but make all your posts public now. Speak loud. Let everybody hear you. I'm sorry if they get offended. They get offended. There's no time to not speak truth. My God, man, look what's going on. Speak the truth. That's all you're doing. You have the truth on your side. Speak it. Speak your truth.
Yeah, and okay in the chat says, "What is coming up ahead?" It's hard to say. There's so many things that they point to and telegraph. There's a number of things that appear to be coming down the pike that we have talked about. For example, on Secrets of Saturn, we do a number of documents. We're covering one this week for another looks like a SPARS pandemic that they're planning for 2025 to 2028. We'll take a look at that document. Another Johns Hopkins University and Rand Corporation piece.
Whoa, John Hopkins. You mean Johns Hopkins?
Sorry, yeah, Johns, exactly, Johns Hopkins.
Gotcha.
I know, right? But yeah, between that sort of stuff, and it does appear, I've seen a lot of stuff with dark skies events. They're talking about a dark winter, and that would indicate that they're planning to turn the power off. So again, it's hard to say, and I'm not big on prognostication. I mean, I can look at these things and go, these are what appear to be possibilities. I would just, from my thing is always to urge people to get in connection with your creator and listen closely to whatever your creator tells you to do, right? That's the best advice I can give, because I don't know, right? But I know the creator knows, because it does appear that they understand the end from the beginning, right? So if you listen closely there, I don't think you can go wrong. And it does, again, it does take some pressure off me, because I don't really know. I can look at things and I go, these appear to be the possibilities. These appear to be the things that they're talking about. But who knows, right? For sure. I do agree that this is the time, the time to be silent is over, and the time to stand up. And I have often said that if you have nothing worth dying for, you have nothing worth living for. All right, and you need to draw your line, figure out where that is, and protect it, guard it. If you wait until that moment, you're going to puss out. Sorry to say. Right?
Yeah, that's why I said the line in the sand is the mask man for me. You know that. I mean, I've been as loud as anybody about it, and you know my story.
Yep.
That's the line in the sand, bro. That's it for me. I'm taking a stand there. I'm nobody's bitch. I'm not a coward, and we know it's a lie. Why are we going to comply?
Yeah.
You know, and if you comply to it, it's only helping it, extend.
Yep. I know that I know that I'm uncomfortable telling people where theirs should be, other than to encourage them to find one, right?
Yeah.
And plan for that, because it's going to come wherever you put that. It is going to come a time where they want your compliance, right? They want you to nod and say yes, and you got to figure out when that time you're going to say no. And it's going to be costly. I don't think there's any question about that. For many people, that is a costly thing to do, to say no. But again, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul?
Exactly.
So what if they take your life, right? Don't threaten me with a good time. Yeah, what? Fuck the fucking fuckers, man. They're not going to push me into it, right? And it's just not going to happen. So I've made my decision what that looks like, and I'm well prepared to defend it. But again, I don't feel comfortable telling anybody what theirs should be, only that they should find one and then be prepared to defend it, and in a way that they're comfortable with, and that looks looks good to them. But again, I always encourage people to go ask Dad. I found him to be very, very smart.
Yeah.
Very, very smart, right?
Yeah.
And way smarter than me, and always right. I got to tell you, sometimes it gets old. Yeah, I mean, it's like, really? Oh man, only one of us in this relationship is perfect, and it's not me, and that's that gets a little old sometimes. Oh man! All right. So, Brian, what would be your? I've certainly given my recommendations for folks. What would you tell those remaining here listening? How do you think they should prepare? What should they look into? What would you point people to being aware of and looking into at this point?
Oh man. Well, certainly ways to become self-sufficient is, and that's something I never really looked into too much before, but I'm trying to learn to do that myself now. We can't trust in the system. It doesn't matter what type of job you have right now. It looks like the whole system is being completely reset, honestly, right? So, I mean, how could you feel security in any type of occupation like that? So, like I've done, I'm starting to do a little bit here on the side, like the Patreon stream to support myself, things like that. Everybody try and find what they can do to help. within our own community, like, different services for people rather than outside of the community. As far as the main thing is, I tell people not to live in fear. Uh, always, anything that comes on the screen, always consider it completely fake. That goes for the politics, that goes for the fear. It's all to keep you in an artificial reality. And as long as we play that game, we're never gonna get to the next level. Um, yeah, I kind of forget what the question was. I know I'm kind of going off
No,
track
that's
here.
fine. That's perfect, actually. So, but yeah, just guide you back and give you a chance to load up and do it again. What recommendation would you have for people to, what should they be looking into right now? Like, again, you started with self sufficiency, right? So, yeah,
Well,
what things to look into? And
uh, honestly, shit, man. I mean, obviously, right now, what's happening in the world with the corona, it has our full attention. I really do think people should be looking into the supernatural changes and paying a lot more attention to that. Especially people that do read the Bible a lot, Baldini, and everybody knows I'm not a Bible guy at all. But the people that read it a lot, where it's near and dear to you, and you're to make your own decision on what those changes mean. The changes are happening. Talk to your pastors about it. See what they think, and most of them are going to be very combative about it. I know that. Also, try and find ways to reason with your friends and family about not following the ridiculous COVID guidelines. Some of the approaches I've taken is recently with the holidays, it's like, okay, so there's Black Friday, and you guys are all going to gather together, but you guys all chastise me when in April and May I was out at the beach. I try to make those ties back to people. And man, I mean, how many months are we going to go before they know anybody? Nobody knows anybody that's died from this thing, and they're still going along with it. And I like to keep pointing that out to people. Like, where are all your friends that have died? Where are all the sick people? Also, another thing is encourage businesses that to stay open. Tell them to just stay the fuck open and give them examples of other people that have done it. I've videoed many businesses that I've went in. Obviously, Basilicos and others that have stayed open the complete time. Nobody wore a mask. Nobody hit any guidelines. Nothing has happened to them. Encourage people to at least try to go everywhere they can without a mask. For those that don't know, I took 13 planes during this pandemic, and I haven't worn a mask once. Does it mean everybody's always going to be 100% successful? No, but hopefully that shows you that it can be done, and it can give you some confidence, and you can go with a head full of confidence. And remember, when you talk to these people, whether it's at a store or an airline or wherever, you not only have the truth on your side, not only are they trying to get you to do something disgusting that's terrible for your health and a satanic agenda, but you know that you're talking to a fucking complete NPC. You know what they need to hear. Lie to them if you need to. I lied to their doctor. I don't give a fuck. Their whole thing's a lie. If I need to lie to their doctor to get on, I'm getting on. I'm not putting it over my face. I'm not pulling a shirt up. I'm not doing none of this. I'm not doing any of that game. I don't consent to it. I don't comply to your reality.
right on. See, this is the Brian that we've all come to know and love, and it's actually, you actually kind of gave me the inspiration for fuck the fucking fuckers, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
man. Fuck the fucking fuckers,
fuck them, man. Exactly, because not gonna do what you tell me to do, and that's the way that I roll with it. Brian, thank you so much for joining me today. I've gotten to know you a little bit better. I'm sure those who are with us today have as well. So tell me what you got coming up. I know that you're making some changes this year. Boob Tube has been harassing everybody, and you're no exception to that. So you've made some changes at your channels. What's going on with that?
So I've completely transitioned all live streams to be live. I'm done doing live shows on YouTube. I'm done pulling me down. And even though they only save the streams for 3 days, it's about 2.5 days longer than my YouTube videos would stay up. And I don't want to walk on eggshells or any of that. I want to be able to say what I want to say. So I'll leave my D Live link right there. All my live shows are there. I'm probably actually going to do a show tonight. But the other thing that I'm doing, Baldini, and this is something that I've been against my whole truth journey, is I was always against collecting donations or anything like that, and YouTube completely demonetized me through the whole year. So all the videos I did in count and everything, I never got you can't even get super chat or anything like that. They completely shut it off. But people told me to set up a Patreon, so I did.
Yep.
And I did it originally just so people could donate as they saw fit, right? Then I decided, well, I should probably give these people a little something extra, right? So I decided I would do an extra show once every other week. And I'm going to do one tomorrow night with Ceiling Fan Man and Tommy Tell the Truth
Awesome.
for the Patreon members of $5 a month or more. And we've done other ones. I did one with Christian Knapp and Mac Parhar was the first one. I
Nice.
did one with Rose. I did one with the Truth Seeker 69 and Karen. And I did one, actually, the one with Rose had Karen on it. I did one with Truth Seeker 69, and I did one with Hugh TV and Sailing Fan Man. So that's what I'm doing tomorrow. So that'll be tomorrow night. And then, Airborne Saint, he will be on with me and Karen on my channel, on my D Live on Thursday night for Unveiling This Realm. So that's what I got coming up. So that's what I've been doing. I've been doing D Live and I've been doing Patreon, and me and Karen are selling the T-shirts, and I'm doing whatever other little things I can because I am not going to go back and work for the man. Thank God there is the unemployment and everything that people have gotten rather than spending that money or just sitting on my ass with it. Some people say, oh, don't accept it. No, I'm taking it. I used it for good. I used it to do a lot of good activism in California, and I've used it as a buffer zone for right now while I transition out of the slave job and try to become sufficient on myself doing this. And so far, although obviously it's not, there's no big income coming in or anything, I do think over several months building it up more, I think I'm going to be fine.
Yeah, and I'm working, toward the same. Got a Patreon that I've set up, but still haven't, launched. I'm going to do that kind of the first of the year, and I've got a D Live channel. I haven't really launched there either, but yeah, I think we're kind of moving in the same direction. Again, I'm pulling back some of my hours come the first of the year at my regular job, such that I can kind of at least put it in some more time into this and do created content more than just the live streams as well. And hopefully, again, fingers crossed, Lord willing, the creek don't rise, but it does seem like things are moving in the right direction, where we might be able to make a go of this communal living situation and taking the first steps, hopefully within 6 months or so. So we'll more as that comes, but sounds like you've got some amazing content. You've chosen all the right people, from my perspective, some of the best people in this community to partner with and have those streams with, because a lot of great minds in this community. And
that's what we do. We help each other, right? And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or anything, but I've helped build up a lot of these channels, and they would recognize that. And I've helped build a lot of bridges, so they don't mind helping me back to keep this going, so I can continue doing what I'm doing and keep doing. It all goes around.
Absolutely, and you know that I'll jump in as quickly as possible. Like when Mac had his incidents, right? I'm just like, okay, let's do something, right? I'm an action guy, right? Let's do something, even if we have to figure it out later. Let's do something now, and that's kind of where I come from. So again, very, very appreciative that you were able to spend time with us today, and of course, I look forward to speaking with you again on your channel coming up Friday. Is it that we're going to do that this coming Friday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this Friday night, I don't know what time's good for you. Do you already know, or do you want to get back to me on that?
Yeah, I'll get back to you. We'll figure it out. But I think I'm probably not going back into the shop after Wednesday, so I'll take a little break and try to get everything set here at Casa de Baldini, right? And try to prepare for what's
Friday night. My awakening interview. I'll interview you on your awakening story. So
perfect.
This is going to be a busy week. So tonight I'll probably do something on D Live. Tomorrow night the Patreon stream with Sailing Fan Man and Tommy. Obviously Tuesday Karen has her show. Thursday me, Karen, and Airborne Saint on my channels. And then Friday, I'll have you on my channel. That's awesome.
Awesome. I'm very much looking forward to it, and always try to catch up as best I can. At D Live certainly does make me scramble to get back there. As we usually do, this is because I'm again haven't spent a lot of time setting my stuff up. But what I typically will do here, Brian, is I'll drop the call, play a little outro music for the folks, say goodbye to them, and then I'll just call you right back and say thanks, and we'll figure out our timeline for Friday. So again, Brian, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it.
All right, brother.
Take care.
Awesome.
I'll call you right back. All right, guys. Again, thanks so much for being along with us this morning. I really appreciate you guys coming along. And again, Brian's a great guy. If you can't tell, he's got a great spirit and so passionate and so dedicated to the principles of truth. This is the kind of people that I've begun to meet in this community, and have been so thrilled to be a part of this community of people who are dedicated, right, to these ideas of following truth, no matter where it goes, no matter what it costs them, right? Whether it's whether it's your job or ultimately even more than that, being dedicated to these principles of always following the truth those are the kind of people I want to hang out with. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. on Sunday, as I usually am, with Ancient Wisdom for a Modern World. And then I'll follow that up with another episode of sort of scriptural coming up tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. Until then, I'll leave you with this one. This is called More Than I've Ever Seen. Way back in the day, wrote this with Joe Ray. Timeless Journey in chat. More Than I've Ever Seen. Probably about 1984-ish, something like that. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. My body is weary, but the hunger will not subside. The flame in my heart is dying, but the fire still burns inside with a light that I cannot hide. I walk on the edge of time, ride the winds of destiny. I hear the thunders coming, bringing me to my knees, like nothing I've ever seen. In my mind I hear the voices calling. In my mind I see the planets collide. In my mind I feel the end beginning. It's like waking up from a dream. It's more than I've ever seen. Shadows fall like angels' tears, leaves darkness on every